Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. This week's book review is going to be a little bit different. Instead of doing a book review about children's literature or young adult literature, middle grade, those types of things, this book review is specifically for parents. Pretty much any parent who is taking care of children who are teens and down. So the two books I'm going to talk about today are Hold On to Your Kids by Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. And The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Hart. I've seen many recommendations for Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, over the years. And then somehow the Neufeld Mate book kind of showed up in a recommendation based on previous personal reads. And being in the field of education and working specifically with high schoolers, as well as parenting my own two teenagers, I'm definitely always interested in reading current books on research and trends. Both books, I know that The Anxious Generation for sure is secular in nature. I believe Hold On to Your Kids is as well, but don't hold me to that. So the worldview of that is kind of reflected a little bit in some of the angles and interpretation of research and trends regarding teens. But ultimately, that does not take away at all from any of the information, or I feel like the author's effectiveness to kind of convey concerns for our current generation of children. So I'm going to focus first on Hold On to Your Kids, Why Parents Matter More Than Peers. This was originally published in 2005, but there's a new updated edition that has an extra chapter on the digital age and post-pandemic concerns when raising children. Separated into several sections, the focus of the information is really to drive parents to understand that their relationship with their children is to be the primary relationship over their children's relationships with their peers. Throughout the book, Neufeld and Mate, they do an excellent job of detailing the trends through society and culture that kind of led to children growing up being more peer-oriented, and really the consequences that has had for individuals and for society because of this. So, not without hope, though, the authors do provide practical guides and steps to help parents kind of reclaim their children and to really develop that sincere relationship that's going to allow their children to ultimately truly thrive. So this particular book is broken up into 5 sections. So part 1 is about the phenomenon of peer orientation. Part 2 is the sabotage, how peer orientation undermines parenting. Part 3 is titled Stuck in Immaturity, how peer orientation stunts healthy development. They also talk a little bit in that particular section about how we can kind of see the effects of that in some of the workforce today. I know that my husband has a difficulty sometimes with newer people who are working in the company who have this, immaturity about them. And so some of that I think probably stems to what the authors here are talking about. Part 4 talks about how to hold on to your kids and then how to reclaim them. And then part 5 is about preventing peer orientation. Ultimately, for parenting, this is one of the most profound books that I've kind of read. Our family has naturally, I think by the grace of God, had a focus of being very strong and influential in our children's lives, and definitely as teens. And the authors in here say too that they're not against, your children having friends. That's not the problem. It's just that when that is the only resource in their lives, when that's the only thing that's given authority essentially over their lives, that we have a problem, and that parents really need to be that primary relationship in their children's lives to guide them and to teach them, because they're not just going to magically become adults knowing how to function in certain situations, but they have to be taught. So hold on to your kids, why parents need to matter more than peers. I definitely recommend that book. So the other book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, that was originally published in 2024. Again, I remember seeing a lot of promotions for this book. This book in particular focuses on social media and what that has done to our youth and to the generations pretty much since the advent of the smartphone in 2010. So I thought the author does an excellent job of kind of communicating those trends and concerns. He talks about anxiety and depression and suicide and apathy, lack of attention in the current generations who have been raised on this technology and social media. Haidt also breaks down kind of the influence and the distinctions between males and females because both of them have been impacted differently by social media and just by this technology itself. The historical trends and influences are definitely extremely important for parents to be aware of. Ultimately, the author is advocating for readers and parents to really limit technology and smartphone use with their families, to set boundaries. He also is really advocating for the legislature to get involved to protect our children more and not really protecting so much profits and corporations. Right now, according to Haidt, children are able to sign up for social media and online accounts at 13. He is advocating for this to be raised to the age of 16. He does also show a distinction and change over time from a play based childhood to a phone based childhood. Parents often seeking to keep their children physically safe have really limited the play aspect and being outside in order to keep their children safe. But in the meantime, they've kind of unknowingly, in many regards, put them at a far more dangerous situation and a landmine on the internet than they would have faced outside. So Haidt's claims and offers observations definitely hit home for me personally, as I've tried to kind of limit and guard my children's online activity. So in some instances, there's a little bit of affirmation that I was doing the right thing, but also this kind of limiting of that play based childhood and that fearfulness of them being hurt outside. I definitely relate to that too. And so, or, being unattended and all the things, stranger danger, all that stuff that we grow up with. So I do think there's a balance for both, but I love how Haidt really kind of focuses on the fact that really the digital landscape is way more dangerous than the physical landscape. And I would definitely agree with that despite our desire and our diligence, stuff still gets through and our children are exposed to things that we don't want them to be exposed to. And the ages at which they're getting exposed to that stuff is younger and younger. So I know that we've all been there. I've been there, that you try to find like some great programs and things to help monitor and control your online use. But it's definitely imperative. I think those things are worth using. I'll just be honest. It's not a paid promotion or anything, but my family uses Canopy. And I absolutely appreciate and I like their software. I haven't had any glitches. There have been things that I used in the past that were not fail safe. I mean, nothing truly is, but I thought my children were protected and they weren't. And so that just is hard to kind of navigate through those things and you try your best to protect your children. But ultimately, I think what Haidt's point is that parents, you've got to take this seriously to protect them cognitively and developmentally and socially and spiritually. And you got to pay whatever it's going to cost to have those safeguards and those excellent programs to kind of help guard and to shepherd your children. This book is also broken into several parts. There are 4 parts in this particular book. One is called Tidal Wave. Part 2 is the backstory, the decline of the play-based childhood. Part 3 is the great rewiring, the rise of the phone-based childhood. And part 4 is the collective action for a healthier childhood. Ultimately, when you combine both of these books, I thought both authors really touch on the proliferation and the ease of access, particularly to pornography to children, as well as the detrimental effects of that exposure. So I definitely want to draw that attention to parents about that connection with both books. One, because I think parents need to realize how easy that information is accessible to their children, and their children may not even be seeking it, but that it is being used and showing up in things that are intending to harm our children. Like people do it on purpose, which is quite sad. The other thing, that another reason I wanted to kind of bring that up is that if you're listening to the audio versions where younger children can hear, I just want you to anticipate that information is coming, because you may or may not want your children, depending on their age, to listen to that. I definitely would highly encourage parents to listen to both of these books. The research that they're pulling from, the information that they are presenting to parents, I think is really important. if you had to choose just one of these two, I would probably pick Hold On to Your Kids. I think they're ultimately, though, like so much of these two books actually go hand in hand, because you have this phone-based childhood that actually leads our children to being more peer-oriented. And so I felt really encouraged, like I said before, that the limitations and just those battles of like, but mom, everyone else has, and that fighting those battles now to protect your children when they cannot fully comprehend things. And even for you, like you could be tired, but you're just fighting those battles. Like, don't give up, parents. Like, it is so worth it, to protect your children and their heart, their mind, their soul. And so I know, again, parenting journey is not without its faults. It is not perfect. There are going to be certainly many situations that we wish we could redo. I do love the hope that is provided in both of these books to help parents to realize, like, if you've made the wrong choices, you can like remake those choices in a sense. And so you can set new limitations. If you gave your child a smartphone at 10, and now they're 13, like, you as the parent, like, you can renegotiate and change how that looks. And so I'm just so thankful that God is faithful, that he can really turn our failures, and things that we break kind of into blessings. And so no matter where you are on the parenting journey, whether you've got infants or toddlers or young children, maybe you have middle schoolers or teens, there is always hope in any situation. And so again, that is one thing I do want to highlight with both of these books, is that there is hope. And no situation is beyond redemption and a turnaround. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but there is always hope for different choices. So as parents, hopefully that's helpful to you as you might be trying to maybe negotiate or just be equipped, as you're raising your children in these generation where things are moving fast, and technology and social media and school and just all the things. I definitely think that these two books are worth taking the time to read. And so I pray that that is helpful to you as a parent. If you are looking for something to kind of help you in your walk as a parent, with your children, that you'll take the time to read these books. And that's at least helpful to kind of put those information out there. And I hope that you'll join me next week for another book review.